Hi there. Yeah, that picture, we could go back to that. It is not today's weather. You will have noticed how nice and sunny bright they were. It was, and that would be right there. That is Evie's Landing. So if you ever come up here for a walk, that's a good one. And if we're together, we can go do that on a nice sunny day. Now this is looking at the foothills of the Olympics that trail down to the um, so we're looking a little bit northwest. That's the um, Puget Sound, the Salish Sea, just up a little bit above the Admiralty Inlet. And then if you keep going out that way and then take a left, that is the Strait of San Juan de Fuca. Will take you to the uh, just past Nia Point and out into the Pacific Ocean. So, but I love this view because we're a couple hundred feet up here, and the trail goes off in both directions. Long walk, but look how beautiful! And this is, you don't get the sense of the panorama of this standing here because you got to remember it goes back over your head, it goes back up both directions this way and that way. Anyway, it's astounding. Today, however, is a little bit of a different day. You'll notice I have somewhat of a sweater on. Oh, excuse me. It is a sweater. It is, in fact, and I'm just sharing some personal stuff here with you, just for the heck of it. Because you know what? If you work with me at all, you'll know that it's one nervous system working off of another that makes healing possible. It's what makes community possible. It's the only thing that makes those things possible. Anyway, it is, wow, 68 degrees and rainy. Oh, and that rain just smells so good. It's so, oh, yeah. Anyway, I don't know I think it's up at the top. Maybe you're seeing it, maybe you're not, but it says, are you regulating? I had a discussion this morning with somebody under an anonymous title, so I'm curious about that. But, and this is something I hear a lot of, and that is, well, I do the yoga, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that, and, all of these things that are supposed to regulate the nervous system, and gee, they don't work. And I said, well, can I offer you a differing opinion, which might sting a little bit? She said, okay. So I did. I think I was gentle about it. But if you think that doing all those things is going to regulate your nervous system, you are incorrect. They will not. They might bring you a little bit of relief for a while, but your nervous system, and this is, oh, I should dig this up because this is what I showed her. Nah, shoot. Not the right one. Okay, boom. All right. Oh, that would be fascinating. I know I have it here, I think, because no, not that one. Up, up. Not this one either, but I saw it. So the there it is. All right, here we go. All right, this is the image I shared with her. If you are in either of these two, the blue or the pink zones, you can do all the yoga, breathing, whatever, and that's fine. but you will not be removed from fight, flight, or freeze. You won't. You know why? Because all of these zones here are the fruit of the state of your autonomic nervous system, not your willpower, not your affirmations or afformations, not your central nervous system. If you are in any of these states, it is the state of your autonomic neurophysiology. That's it. And all the things that this person was doing were all willpower. I am going to do this, therefore it will regulate my nervous system. No, it won't. It will. None of those things are actually the evolutionary deactivation that we have within us. Believe that or not, all what you need to heal your trauma and regulate your nervous system and stay grounded and all that is already inside of you. And here's where regulating is like grounded. When people say they need to be grounded, oh, I got to go outside and get grounded. That means you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You're not grounded. When you finally get into social engagement by using the evolutionary process that's in your body, an autonomic process to deal with an autonomic problem, then you get into that place of being grounded, and you don't need to be grounded. It's the same way with regulating. Your nervous system regulates a million things because that's how it evolved. You think you can do better than your own autonomic nervous system? I have news for you. You cannot. There's a good chance in your trying, you will make things worse. Once you're in the green zone, the social engagement, that's Porter's name. I call it safety, and other people do too. Once you're in that green zone, you don't have to worry about regulating. It will do this all by itself, which is really good news, because that means I don't have to do all this stuff to stay regulated. Yeah, wouldn't you like to have that time back? Anyway, where those things then become a benefit, and I assure you, many of them are. Yoga's good, breathing is good, getting enough sleep, and so forth and so on. All of those things are very good because they will optimize what it means to be in the green zone all the time. Because to go into the stress cycle is natural. It's also natural that every time you go into it, you deactivate it once you learn how. That's kind of what this picture indicates. And this is somewhat built off of the polyvagal theory. And all of these letters and stuff, blah, blah, all have significance, but let me use an illustration, and I've shared it here before. And that is, so you have a backpack, all right? And I don't have mine here, but I stuff it with this book, and then this book. Okay. That's just by X hour of the morning. So let's get rid of the picture for a second here. All right. So my backpack has now got these two books in it. And then I add a third one. And all of these books represent stress cycles. Somewhere the body perceived a threat. The difference between eustress, eustress, and distress, distress, is the perception of danger or a threat to life is distress. You can have stress with no threat, and that's called eustress. Look it up. It's right in your dictionary. So all things being equal, if we put this into the backpack and then we complete the cycle by deactivating it with tremoring and breathing, whoop, comes right out of your backpack. Not there anymore. But we didn't learn that, did we? I know I didn't. I was 58 years of books going into my backpack, and it got heavier and heavier and heavier, and then along comes the Oxford. All right. So we've all heard the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Well, that was that little tiny, like, yeah, I should have pulled out a little tiny book for that, because that's, even though the one that broke my back was not exactly small. But that's the process of trauma healing then, is going through that backpack and pulling all these books out and allowing the body to process the experience emotionally, physiologically. And that's a bit of work, actually. But the body knows how to do that, because the body does keep the score. So when we have this experience, which is not the trauma, it's all of these combined, and that allostatic load that we're carrying now, that's trauma, because it has impacts on our physiology, which it has disrupted thoroughly, which then has an impact on your psychology. Yeah, that becomes the state of trauma. And in that state of trauma, that's where we are called dysregulated. And all of that happened autonomically. Do you think that I kept putting these things into my backpack because I wanted to? I don't think so. And do you think that I carried it because I wanted to? So when somebody says, let go of it, man, these things are now stitched into me. That metaphor can only go so far. But anyway, all of the things that I do then with yoga and breathing and all, I do it with a backpack full of books, because they won't take the books out. Those are willpower. Those are anything other than autonomic. But there is an autonomic process, as I've already said, that is part of the beep, 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 right there says so. All right. And that's what I've been teaching people for 13 years. When you get to having emptied the backpack, which is all this fight, flight, freeze stuff, and you've moved into the neighborhood of social engagement, guess what? You're not carrying that heavy backpack anymore. And now you don't necessarily have to worry about regulating, because your autonomic nervous system will have returned to equilibrium. It wasn't meant to carry that backpack for that many years. We didn't evolve that way. This is a new and thoroughly modern thing that I'm aware of. I think Robert Sapolsky would probably say the same thing. I think where he might be a little different is, back in the day, something that was a threat really was a threat. You had to flee or fight, because if you didn't and you lost, you were lunch. Simple as that. That's kind of the idea, I think. And where, as he would say it, yeah. Okay. You did one of the two, and you did it successfully, or you weren't anymore. Now we've added modern society around this, and some of the other things that I'm reading about initiations and things like that, and there's discussions around whether or not modern man can come into these places of initiation to go through this transformation. Yes, we can. I think some of the guys who didn't think that were correct. But what they noticed was that a lot of things that we now go through in modern society were not part of indigenous ancient societies, because they understood not only these rhythms and this deactivation process, they had that being with a person type of experience that could help them do that. They had the community that could help them do that. And because of those things, there was the it went in, came right out. Went in, came right out. They had the initiations of the cycles when the girls had the puberty, and when the guys suddenly started noticing the gal who was going through puberty. All right, and that's I think it was I want to say it was the Emerald Jungle, but I could be wrong. That's essentially, white guy adopted by a South American tribe, and that's when the chief noticed, okay, he's the hormone train was in the station, to put it my way, and so they initiated him. That's when you cease to be a boy and you enter into the realm of manhood. And in some tribes, that meant you now were a warrior. You had to learn the ways of war and possibly go whoop somebody on the head or it just hit somebody of an opposing tribe. But the whole idea is now you have to start being a man, providing, helping the hunt, that kind of stuff. So because all that stuff is missing, we now have this allostatic load that ancient peoples might never have had. Well, okay. Regardless, we do have it, and we can go through this activation process, and we can get out of that because apart from this allostatic load that we already have, now we're trying to add to it all the stuff I have to do to stay regulated and grounded. We're just simply adding to our load. Doesn't that seem crazy? Yeah. I didn't do any of this shit because I didn't know any of this language before I knew what this kind of trauma even was. To me, trauma was bleeding too much, not breathing enough, or thinking I was Queen Elizabeth. And the year was 1117. Yeah. That to me is what trauma was. So to find out about this was like, oh, whoa. And then to find out about developmental trauma and A scores and all the rest of that was even more of a whoa. But the body can take care of all of that. So whether you want to believe the body actually holds the score or keeps the score, the body can even the score when your brain cannot. Lay down over there. Yeah, that's the reality, because developmental stuff could have happened pre-words, and all of that happened in the So guess what the body can do? It can go where words never existed. And all it takes is a good therapist. But what I want you to see today is that all of the stuff that we do to regulate and stay grounded and all the rest of that stuff, I don't want to say it's unnecessary because part of it is a relief, but don't think that this is healing you because it's not. And don't think that this is it's regulating you because it never will. If you are in autonomic chronic state of stress, that's trauma. That's all the books in the backpack. And every day we go through more and more and more. We wake up, the alarm goes off, and the alarm goes off late. Bang, 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 first cycle, whoop, into the backpack. All right, then we get out in the car, and guess what? The car doesn't start. All right, and then we're down the block finally, and we realize, I didn't I left some of my work at home, and I just left without lunch. Into the backpack it goes. And then I go up the exit, and I'm just, okay, it's cool. And pretty soon I see a sea of red lights. Road rage. Come on, you motherfuckers. Move your asses. I mean, thankfully, I don't have that problem here. People can drive slow, but it's nothing like having driven in Chicago. And I hear LA and Boston are even worse. And we haven't even got to work yet. So what happens when we finally manage to get into where the job is, find a parking spot, haul up to the 13th floor, And when we walk in the door, just barely on time, the boss is doing this. Ding, 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 ding. That's how this works. All of these, are they real threats? It's if your boss is standing there pointing a gun at you, that's a threat. This is not a threat. We just think it is. But that's the problem because now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stress cycles. We haven't even started working yet. Day after day after day. Do you see why that backpack gets full? So your regulating might be shuffling that backpack a little bit on your back. It's not emptying it. Grounding isn't emptying it. You need an autonomic deactivation to make that have a dent. If doing yoga and things like that make you feel better, great. But here's what I would suggest. If you really want to talk, get a hold of me. We'll talk and we'll see if we're a good fit because maybe you should really learn to heal your trauma first. And then these things that you're doing to regulate will really start to have some positive impact because where they belong is in the green zone where they can optimize that nervous system and or that nervous system will optimize those practices to your benefit. That is really good news. All right, I'll talk to you later. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we shall talk again.